Okay, so we're coming to the mat in any comfortable cross-legged seat that's easy for you. We're going to try to keep this as non-sweaty as possible today, as we're probably already above 90 degrees, but we are here to celebrate the summer solstice. So that's what today's practice will be about. So we'll start just by dropping in, noticing how you feel in all the bodies, physical, intellectual, emotional, spiritual, just checking in with yourself, beginning to observe, beginning to quiet the mind and find stillness. Beginning to connect to the breath. As you're settling in, as we celebrate the summer solstice in today's practice, we'll be looking for some balance between sun and moon as themed in the practice. If you want to apply a mantra to today's practice, it might be something like, I am light, I am strength, or I am that. Or maybe I bow to the sun, something to celebrate the longest days of the year and the changing of the seasons. We're going to try to stay open to absorbing the energy and the nourishment from the sun. Maybe try to visualize that as we move. International Yoga Day is actually on the solstice, June 21st, which just passed. Traditionally, we might do 108 sun salutations to celebrate that day. We are not going to do 108 sun salutations today. We will do some. Reconnect with the breath. Bring your focus there. We're going to do a little breath work before we begin. So just settle into that and notice your natural breathing rhythm. Remember that this is your practice. I am merely a guide. All of my verbal cues are just suggestions. Feel free to listen to your body and honor your practice, whatever it looks like. Feel free to close your eyes at any point during the practice if it feels good. I encourage you to be curious in your body. Move without judgment or attachment today. You can gently open your eyes if you have them closed. We're just going to do a little bit of breath work. So from this seated pose, first check in with the spine, nice and open through the chest, shoulders back. We're going to create a little balance between the sun and moon energies by doing some intermittent breathing through the nose. So you're going to use your right hand or your left, whichever you want. We'll use the index finger and the thumb to alternate closing off one nostril as we breathe in through the other or exhale through the other. Your other fingers can just radiate outward. We'll sync up together. Let's start by closing one nostril. Take a nice big inhale. And before you exhale, use your index finger, close the other nostril, exhale through the opposite nostril. Move with the natural rhythm of your breath. So I'm using my thumb to close the right side of my nose on my inhale. And using my index finger to close the left nostril on my exhale. And just connect with the breath as you breathe at your own pace. Notice how you feel. We'll continue breathing in one nostril and out the other. Switch sides in just a bit. In the meantime, stay connected with the breath. Closing off one side for a deep inhale. And closing the other for a full exhale. Let's take a few more cycles of breath on this side. Before you switch sides, you can rest both hands gently on the knees. Come back to that center pose when you're ready. Check in again with the spine, nice and open through the chest, shoulders back. And maybe just take a couple of inhales and exhales here just to notice how you feel. When you're ready, and only when you're ready, we'll use that opposite hand to do the same thing on the second side. So whichever nostril you were breathing in through, you will now exhale through that one, and vice versa. So just using that thumb and index finger to close off one nostril. Inhale deeply. And then close off the opposite, exhale completely. Sync up with your natural breathing rhythm. Try to deepen the breath. Stay connected to the breath. If you start to lose focus, just come back to the sound of the breath. Let's take a couple more cycles of breath. or as many as you need to feel satisfied. When you're ready, you can release your hands to the tops of the knees again. Check in with that spinal alignment. We can drop our hands to the mat, to the left and to the right, and we're just going to continue syncing up with the breath and kind of honor the sunrise and sunset. On your inhales, just bring the hands all the way up and overhead, big range of motion, palms together. On your exhale, you can slowly melt the hands back down to the mat. You're also going to turn to the right, so pivot to the right, just checking in with your range, articulating through the spine. Inhale, hands back up toward the ceiling, palms together. And exhale to the second side, coming to the left this time, releasing the palms to the floor, maybe twisting through the spine a bit. And we'll just sync up with our breath, moving through this a few times as your body calls for. Let's go through one more cycle on each side, just even it out wherever you are. And you can come back to center when you're ready, nice and neutral in your cross-legged seat. Take a deep breath when you land there. And then we will come forward onto all fours for cat-cow, so feel free to recenter yourself as needed. You know what to do once we get there. We're just going to warm up through the spine, palms under the shoulders, knees under the hips. Starting with a nice neutral spine and then syncing up with the breath on your inhale, dropping the low ribs toward the mat, tail toward the ceiling, lifting the gaze. And on your exhale, pressing into the palms, arching through the upper back, curling the low ribs inward, pressing down through the tops of the feet. Be curious in the body. Sync up with your breath, your own breathing rhythm. Take a few iterations of that, stretching through the spine. And when you feel good, we'll come into our first downward dog. So take your time getting there. When you're ready, curl the toes under, extend through the knees, lifting the hips toward the ceiling. Stretching through the backs of the legs, bringing the heels toward the floor, but they don't need to touch. Don't worry too much about that. Rotating the palms slightly outward, finding that nice flat back position. Maybe shake out your hair, relax through the head and neck for a minute. Feel free to pedal through the feet or bend into each knee, alternating if it feels good. Make it your own. And then from here, we're going to gently walk up to the top edge of the mat for our first standing forward fold. So take your time getting there. Move as you do. Relax through the spine, the head, the neck, the shoulders when you get there. Take a moment. Full extension through the knees, but we're not forcing or pushing anything. Just honoring where you are in your practice to get today. From here, we'll root down through the heels, sinking your weight into the heels, and we'll gently drag the fingertips along the front edge of the body. We're going to come all the way up to standing, nice and slowly, like you're moving through water, bringing palms together overhead. Maybe finding a gentle back bend here if it's in your practice. Let's bring palms together at the heart. Tuck the chin, shoulders back. Nice full inhale, and on your exhale, we'll release the palms back to the floor, move back into that standing forward fold. This time we'll lift up just halfway, bringing the palms to the front of the shins or the front of the thighs. Finding that nice flat back position again. And then release the hands on your exhale, coming back down to the mat, back down to your forward fold, and we'll go through that again. So root to rise, rooting the heels in through the mat. We'll drag the fingertips along the front edge of the body, coming all the way up to standing with palms overhead. Take your time getting there. You can keep that straight posture or find a little mini back bend here. And bring the palms slowly together at the heart. Tuck the chin. Nice full inhale. On your exhale, release the palms back to the mat, and let's do that one more time at your own pace. So you're in your forward fold, take your time, sync up with the breath. Root down through the heels. On your inhale, drag the fingertips up along the front edge of the body. All the way up toward the ceiling, palms together overhead. Maybe finding that mini back bend here. Palms together at the heart. Tuck the chin. One full inhale. Exhale, release the palms all the way back down to the mat. From your forward fold, we'll halfway lift, bringing the palms to the shins or the tops of the thighs, or maybe even straight back behind you, whatever feels right. From there, we'll release the palms back down into that standing forward fold. Take your time getting there. Move at your own pace. Find what feels good for your body today. And from that standing forward fold, when you get there, we're going to move into a low lunge. So we'll keep that left foot planted where it is. We'll send the right one back. Let's frame that left foot with the hands and lower that right knee to the mat. Extending through that right foot, and then hinging at the hips, we'll come up to an upright position. So you can interlace the fingers and just press down on that left knee if you want to sink a little more deeply into this low lunge. We can also bring the hands up and overhead, use the left hand to grab the right wrist, and pull that up and over toward the left for that side body stretch that we did last class. So this is like a marriage. We're grounding down through the earth and reaching up toward the sun for that harmony. Take your time here, breathing deep. And we'll release the hands back to that low lunge. We're going to move into warrior two from here. So with your hands framing that left foot again, we'll curl the right toes under, lift the right knee, and then we're going to pivot on that back foot, kind of angle it toward the right side of the mat, hinging at the hips, opening up to warrior two, sinking deep into that left knee, finding your balance, finding your strength. We'll move into reverse warrior. So bring that right hand to the back of the right thigh. Left hand comes all the way up and over like the sunrise. Extend through that left knee. And then let's level out the arms, parallel to the floor. Sink your weight back into that right hip. So left leg should be straight, right leg is relatively straight, extension at both knees. We'll bring that left hand to either the inside edge or the outside edge of that left ankle. Sending the right hand up toward the ceiling for Trikonasana. Take your time here, breathe deep. Really reaching for the sun. Absorbing that radiant energy. We'll cycle the right hand all the way back down. Framing that left foot. We'll send the left foot back for plank and move through a vinyasa to switch sides. So slowly lower to the belly when you're ready. Uncurl the toes, press up for cobra, melt it back down. We'll meet in downward dog. Coming back into that downward dog, take your time here. Feel free to find stillness or pedal through the feet, whatever feels right. Take a break here, cool off a little bit. Enjoy the richness of your breath. And we'll move into that low lunge on the second side. So we'll just bring that right knee all the way up and through, planting that right foot, framing it with both hands. We'll lower that back knee to the mat. Unravel the toes, hinging at the hips, bringing the spine upright into your low lunge. You can interlace your fingers, put them on your right knee if it feels good, just to sink deeper into that lunge. Or we can bring the hands all the way up and over again. This time right hand grabs the left wrist, pull up toward the ceiling and over toward the right side of the mat. Nice deep breaths. Release when you're ready and only when you're ready. Bring the palms back down to frame that right foot. Take your time here. From low lunge, we're going to move into warrior two. So we'll start by curling the back toes under, lifting that left knee, pivoting on the back foot, that left foot, so that it's at about a 45-degree angle toward the left side of the mat. It doesn't have to be exactly that, of course. And then we'll hinge at the hips, opening up the arms, coming into our warrior two on the second side. Sinking down nice and deep into that right knee. We'll drop the left hand to the back of the left thigh. Extend through that right knee as you bring the right arm all the way up and over to point behind you. Reverse warrior. Okay, from here we'll level out the arms parallel to the mat. Let's sink back into that left hip, putting your weight into that left hip. Both knees at full extension. We'll bring that right palm to either the inside edge or the outside edge of the right ankle as we bring the left palm toward the ceiling, opening up through the chest for Trikonasana. Cycle that left arm back down to the mat to frame that right foot when you're ready. Pivot on the ball of the left foot, send the right foot back for plank. Slowly lower to the belly. Uncurl the toes, press up for cobra. Melt it back down, and instead of downward dog, we'll just come back up to all fours position. So that tabletop position, palms under the shoulders, knees are under the hips. From here, we're going to practice a modified half moon pose. So typically this would be done in a standing position, but we're going to keep this low to the ground today. So all you're going to do for that is you can drag that right knee inward a little bit toward the center of the body. Same with the right palm. That's where we'll sink our weight today. We're going to open up by stacking the left hip over the right to raise that left leg off the ground. So left leg is about parallel to the ground, and we're pulling that left hip open. We'll do the same thing with the left hand, just by bringing it up toward the ceiling, toward the sky, toward the sun, and finding your balance. You're going to feel some glute engagement, probably. Try to stay present. We won't be here long, this is just a little practice. Later we will try, not today, but in another practice, we'll try the standing version. So take your time here, cycle that hand back down when you've had enough. And we'll do the same thing on the second side, moving at your own pace. Beginning from that tabletop position, you can slide that left knee, left palm in toward the center line a little bit. We're going to raise that right knee, right hip off the ground, extending through the right leg, really pulling that right hip open, and then right palm toward the ceiling. Find your balance, find your strength. Take your time, enjoy it. Get playful, be curious. And if you fall out of it, no big deal. You can just go right back in it. When you feel satisfied, we'll cycle that right hand back down to the mat, bringing that right knee back down to the mat, coming back into tabletop. Let's send the big toes into touch. Open the knees as wide as is comfortable. Send the hips back toward the heels. Walk the hands forward. Forehead to the mat for extended child's pose. Reconnect with the breath. Notice where your thoughts are going. Notice what's distracting you, if anything. Remember your mantra if you had one. I am light, I am strength. Or maybe so hum, I am that. Whatever your mantra, take this time to reground, reconnect. Enjoy the fullness of your breath. Leave something on the mat with every exhale. Take your time in this pose. Take as long as you'd like. We're going to practice a couple more balancing poses when you feel satisfied. So take your time here. And as you're ready to come out, walk the hands up toward the body, nice and slow, like you're moving through water. We're never in a hurry, always present in the sensations that we feel. Once you get there, we're going to come and do some tree pose practice next. So move however you do to come up to your standing position. And try a couple of balancing poses, including this one, just to help us find balance in these longest and hottest of days. When you're ready, center yourself on your mat, however you are. We've done tree pose before, so you know what to do. We'll sink our weight into our left foot to begin with. Bring that right foot into the inside edge of that left thigh. Feel free to use your hands to adjust if you need to. Find that pressure point, push in there with that right foot. Find your balance. And then maybe send the arms up overhead. Taking up space, really reaching toward the sun like a summer tree. Maybe bring palms together at the heart space and find some quiet meditation. Or maybe hands are just at the waist for now, that's fine. Find what you need to find balance. Remember, if you fall out of it, no big deal, we just get right back in it. Take a moment here. Find what feels good. Challenge yourself. Remember your mantra. I am light. I am strength. Take as much time as you want on this side. Connecting with the breath, quieting the mind. When you're ready to come out, do so gently, do so mindfully. Just release that right foot to the mat. Maybe roll through the ankles if that was intense before we switch to the second side. And feel free to switch back and forth. It's your practice, so find what works for you. Be curious in your body. Same thing on that second side. Left foot comes to the inside edge of the right thigh. Find your balance here. Remember your mantra. Get long, take up space, absorbing that nourishment and radiation from the sun. Take your time in any variation. Feel free to explore. Just checking in with the balance today. Feel free to close your eyes if it feels good, or just keep a soft gaze on a fixed focal point. Connect with the breath. Notice if your thoughts wander. And when you're ready, and only when you're ready, release that left foot to the mat. Take your time. Feel free to roll through the ankles if it feels good. All right, from here we're going to try dancer pose. So I'm going to turn to face the long edge of my, face the top edge of my mat for this one, so I have a lot of space to work with. But essentially what we're going to do here is plant that right foot somewhere near the center of your mat, get grounded and get stable in that. We're going to gently lift that left foot off the mat just by leaning forward and then bending into that left knee to grab the left foot. So we'll start there. We're going to continue leaning forward at the hips, maybe extending that right arm out in front of you, finding your balance, taking your time. Find that fixed focal point. If you fall out of it, get right back in it, no big deal. And if you get to this point, you can continue sending the foot toward the ceiling, pressing that foot into the palm. Trying to find your balance, challenging the balance. Holding there. Reconnecting with the breath. Being curious, challenging the body and the mind. And gently releasing when you're ready. So I will cue that up one more time on this side. Feel free to move on to the second side if you're ready to do so, or continue this practice on the right. So I'm going to start by just planting my right foot, sinking my weight into that, hinging slightly at the hips to lift my left foot off the ground, finding my balance there, bending into the left knee to grab that outside edge of the left foot with the left hand. Maybe extending that right arm in front, reaching out like you're trying to greet someone, or say right this way. And then continuing that trajectory, pressing the foot into the hand, pressing that higher toward the ceiling, maintaining that balance in the right leg. Be playful, be curious. If you fall out, get right back in. It happens to me all the time, no big deal. If you feel satisfied on that side, we'll switch to the left by planting that left foot in the center of the mat, sinking our weight into it. Hinging at the hips to raise that right foot slightly off the ground, and then bending into that right knee. Bringing the right hand to the outside edge of that right foot. Maybe sending that left hand forward, like you're reaching out to shake someone's hand. Continuing that trajectory and then pressing the right foot into the left hand and up toward the ceiling. If you fall out, get right back in it. It's natural for one side to be more difficult than the other, so just give yourself grace. Reconnect with the breath, quiet the mind. Notice if you're having any self-limiting thoughts. Let's let those go. Take your time in that practice. Be curious, and when you're ready, release that right foot back to the floor. Once you've released that right foot back to the floor, we'll come back into our standing forward fold. So I'll meet you all there. Take your time. Feel free to explore. If you're in this standing forward fold, just relax through the head, the neck, the shoulders. Feel good about what you just practiced, what you just accomplished, what you just learned about your body. Remember your mantra. Let's sync up with the breath here. And then on your next inhale, we'll root down through the heels, slowly dragging the fingertips along the front edge of the body as we curl up through the spine, nice and slow, like you're moving through water or jello or some other substance. Bring the hands all the way up and overhead, palms together, really reaching, getting long, maybe finding that one last mini back bend. Bring the palms together to rest gently at the heart space. Tuck the chin, close your eyes if it feels good. Nice big inhale here. And as you exhale, we'll release the hands back to the mat. All the way down into that forward fold. Inhale, drag the fingers along the front edge of the body, just halfway lift. Nice flat back. We'll exhale, release the hands back down to the mat. From here, we're going to walk the feet as wide as the mat, and then let the toes spill off on either side. We're coming into a yogi squat here, so just bending into the knees, elbows inside of the knees, hips toward the mat, palms together at the heart space. Nice and long through the spine, checking in here. Noticing how you feel. Noticing the breath. From here, we're going to transition into boat pose, something we started recently. So feel free to move as your body's asking you to. Stay here as long as you'd like. Or drop the hips back toward the mat, keeping the hands raised, lifting the feet off the mat to come into your boat pose. Any variation that works for you, any variation that's part of your practice. From there, let's roll onto the back. Tuck the knees in toward the chest. Maybe rock gently to the left and to the right. And we'll begin to cool down here. So any cool down poses that are calling to you, feel free to take them. Whether that's happy baby pose, opening up the knees, sending the heels toward the ceiling, pulling the knees down toward the armpit chest. Or maybe just a reclined bound angle pose, bringing the soles of the feet together, letting the knees fall apart, resting feet and ankles on the mat. Find any easy organic movement here that your body is asking you for. We're going to wrap up the practice soon, so give it what it's asking you for. Take your time in this pose or in your cool down practice. When you're ready, you can extend through the legs for Shavasana, opening up the palms toward the ceiling. Feel free to grab a pillow if it's comfortable for you. We'll settle in once again for about 5 minutes of quiet meditation. Connecting with the breath, noticing your natural breathing rhythm. Just allowing the body and mind to relax and absorb the nutrients of your practice. Enjoy the fullness of your inhales. Feel supported by the earth. Relax a little deeper with every exhale. Notice if your mind starts to wander, just come back to the sound of your breath. Allow yourself to relax a little more deeply in this space that you've created for your practice. I'll be quiet. You can just breathe for about another minute. Before we close this practice, I want to do a land acknowledgement and recognize the indigenous Monongahela, Osage, and Erie people occupied this land before us, from where I'm teaching. So we recognize and honor their struggles that are ongoing. Recognize that there are many opportunities for us to support indigenous peoples in their fight for liberation. If it feels right, you can bring palms together to rest gently at the third eye or space between the eyebrows, or just rest your hands on the body somewhere, feel connected. We also want to recognize that yoga is an ancient spiritual practice which comes from the subcontinent of India and Indian culture. We honor that heritage. We recognize that yoga is also a community. I thank you so much for being part of my community today. I hope you got something you needed here today, and I hope to see you again soon. Namaste.